it is interesting though, right? Because they are listing Cloudera, they're listing Databricks, Snowflake, Teradata, all as partners in this, right? And so it's very clear they're trying to position this as much more as a core part of the data pipeline. But if I think in terms of, and maybe this is a reflection more on me than anything, but if I look at this from more of a traditional way, if I'm looking at how do I manage and orchestrate a data pipeline and all the different pieces and parts to that, I'm struggling to understand where they're sitting. Are they just the last mile connector into the ServiceNow ecosystem? Is that all this really is? Or is this really a standalone offering in some way that's going to be a central part to my data pipeline? And right now I'm thinking it's the former. Um, but to their credit, and this is the part where maybe this is me not thinking about it properly, is the one thing that I will say they have going for them, again, kind of looking at this comparison to MuleSoft versus the Databricks SAP thing, is that those were both sort of the traditional, largely ETL driven models of how I do data level integration within a traditional enterprise stack type environment.
Hmm.
And in ServiceNow's defense, they're clearly focusing this fabric, their fabric as they call it, their workflow data fabric, on not only workflows, but more specifically agentic AI powered workflows. And it does sort of beg the question, does that change the approach? I mean, like in our case with Symphony AI, what we're focused on is like we largely believe that this is all an integration layer. It's about
Hmm.
connecting to data at rest and data in place and not needing to have this whole data construct. So if that's a similar context, which I presume it is, then maybe that makes more sense. And maybe, we're looking at it wrong if we're comparing it. I think it's just difficult because that's the world they live in, right? They're in the world of Salesforce and SAP and these big
Hmm.
giant companies who have full on data products. So I think that was my big takeaway. It was not really clear what this intended to be, but what is clear is that data is a key part of it. And so to your point, it was necessary.
Yes, but I do think there's going to be this real question about how much the data integration layer has to be defined. So ServiceNow is obviously going for kind of the old school, strong definitions and integrations layer. What you described with Symphony is kind of a level up, thinking more about access to the data and worrying less about absolutely defining the integration at every single little step. And then there's approaches like Zama Zagnani with her data mesh approach. She has a startup called Next Data, where she's actually trying to fully decentralize data to the point where you can define ecosystems around any data source at any time, complete flexibility, which is not going to be a use case that everybody needs for every use case, but it shows that we are thinking less about starting to create technologies that are not simply about the traditional data integration layer that is fully defined, but we're starting to create more flexibility. And AI is helping with that because now we can figure out what is the use case that we're really trying to support, or what is the data source centric view that we are taking, or the user centric view that we are taking, and then build everything around that the user, the role, the industry. And it's going to be interesting to see how these different data governance approaches build out over time. Obviously, Symphony's made a bet in a direction that is different from what ServiceNow is doing.